Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad-padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavatthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karni Vishnunyam Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Shushtuagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashvavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti Nastakshyo Varishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Upanishad describes the nature of Brahma, Atma, the self, as Gunatrayatitaha, Avastatrayatitaha, Gunatraya Atitaha, Avastatraya Atitaha, Dehatraya Atitaha, Kalatraya Atitaha. This is not an object that you can describe with certain qualities or attributes. It is you. And yet you have to find a way of describing it. Everything that we know in this Jagat is an object. It's an object for our perception, for our knowledge. I, the knowledge, and the object of my knowledge. I, the knower, knowledge, and the object of my knowledge. Everything in the Jagat is an object of knowledge. Some of them I perceive directly with my senses. Some of them I know indirectly. Some of them I know pending later verification. Some of them are verifiable, can be either proven or disproven. But all of them are objects of my knowledge. Therefore, I can qualify them, any one of them, whether it is an object like a pen or a stone, or an object like an individual, or an object like a photon, or an object like a thought, an object like a feeling, an object like Svargaloka or any other loka for that matter. I can qualify them. And I need to qualify them because they need to be distinguished from other objects. But when it comes to Atma, Brahman, I, Omkara, all mean the same thing. It's about I, the subject, the knower. I cannot attribute any quality to this. There cannot be quality. And yet I have to find a way of describing it. How does Shastra explain to us what this Brahman is, Vastu is? Words. There is no other way. And therefore it gives us words in two ways. One, by describing this Atma, Brahman, I, Omkara, Vastu, Sarvam as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. These are not descriptive words. You cannot take the word meaning and say this is what this Brahman is. You cannot, for example, Shankaracharya uses very commonly Shuddha Buddha Nitya Mukta Atma. You cannot say that this is Shuddha Atma, there is some Ashuddha Atma also. There isn't anything like that. There is no comparison. So how do we understand these words? Only as Lakshyartha, not as the Vachyartha, not as the meaning of the word meaning. This is one way of describing it. And then when we understand what this Lakshyartha means and why the Lakshyartha is used, because we have to find a way of describing this Brahman, till I can understand that I am Satchidananda. Then I know what Satchidananda is, because there is nothing else. Ekameva Advityam. Till that time, I have to have descriptive words. The second method that is used to differentiate from all the objects, tangible, intangible, near, far, direct, indirect, whatever, is to say this is none of this. Na iti, na iti. So that also makes it possible for us to conceive the idea of Brahman, Purnatvam, infinity, Atma, I, Omkara, everything. So some of the commonly used expressions in the Shastra is Gunatraya Atitaha, Gunatraya Atitaha, not subject to the classification by Guna. Everything in this Jagat is just a combination of these Guna. Because everything originates from Maya, which is Triguna. But I, Atma, Brahman, has nothing to do with Maya. Maya is an idea brought in to try and understand what I think I know, which is the Jagat. We will see a lot more in detail when we do Drishya Viveka, which I hope we will do after we finish this. Maya is only an idea, which will be negated, is negatable. I does not limit itself by the gunas. So, Triguna Atitaha, Gunatraya Atitaha. So one method of saying is, everything I know is a combination of the three gunas. And this Brahman, which I'm trying to understand, to whom I have given a form of Lord Ganapathi for my own convenience, who I accepted a form of Lord Ganapathi with a big udara, is nothing but an expression of Brahman, which is Gunatrayatitaha. While I can say this about Lord Ganapathi, that it has a lot of guna of various types, what it stands for is no guna. It's not limited by guna. Any guna will limit it. If I say such and such a person is a sattvika person, I'm also saying is not a tamasika person, because they are mutually exclusive. Therefore, I am limiting that individual. Whereas I, Brahman, cannot have limits. Therefore, Gunatraya Titaha. And our own lives of any jiva is just a cycle between waking, dream, and sleeping. Look at any life of any jiva, it is simply a cycle between these three states. When a person is in deep sleep, he cannot dream. In deep sleep, there is no dream, nor is he awake. Here also, all the three are mutually exclusive. When one is, the other is not. And yet, what inheres in all of them has to be that I, because I cannot, if I am, say, I am the waker, then what happens when I'm in the dream state? I don't exist, because the waker doesn't exist. Or in deep sleep, the waker doesn't exist. So the three states, Jagrat, Swapna, and Nidravastha, it's a cycle. A change from this to this to this to this. And they are distinctly different. A dream state exists, a waking state exists, a deep sleep state exists because something makes them possible. All three are negatable. Why? Because when I am in deep sleep, the waking state is negated. Dream state is negated. When one is in any one of these three states, other two states are negated. They don't exist. All are time bound. Our entire frame of reference in this Jagat is time and space. All our thinking is restricted by time and space. These three states are also contained within time. All are time bound. In the Jagrat state, I am interacting with the world, with the Jagat external to me, Bahya, with my Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira. When I'm in the dream state, I am not interacting with the external world at all, because my Sthula Sharira has become unmanifest. I only live in a projected world, projected by my Sukshma Sharira, my Manas. At that time, the Jagat Avastha is not existing. There is no Sthula Sharira available. There is no interaction with the external world. But there is an interaction with the world created by the Swapna, by the Sukshma Sharira. So, one is Bahya interaction, one is Antara interaction. In the deep sleep state, neither the Sthula Sharira nor the Sukshma Sharira is available, except, like I said, Prana. There is no interaction. There is no Kama. There is no Karma. Nothing happens. There is Karma in the Jagat Avastha. We deliberately do actions which will have Karma Phala. In Swapna Avastha also, there is certain amount of Karma and Karma Phala. If you have a nightmare, it is also Karma Phala. But in deep sleep state, there is no Karma, there is no Kama. If there is no Karma, no Kama, what does it indicate? We are in a state of ourselves. Being with only yourself. The real self which illumines all the three states. The state of Ananda. The problem is, because Sukshma Sharira is not accessible, Sthula Sharira is not accessible, we don't even know we are in that state. Till the Sukshma Sharira becomes available. When does it become available? The next day when you wake up. Then you say, I had such a nice sleep. Without the Sukshma Sharira, we can't even make the statement. Sushupta Kale Sakale Viline Sukharupa Meti. We are actually in the state of Ananda, only we don't know. Why don't we know? Because we are still in the state of ignorance. Nothing, we know nothing in the state of deep sleep. If only we knew that we have actually, we are in our own self, in Ananda Swarupa, why would you want to wake up? Nobody will want to wake up. But you have to wake up because the Sharira still has to undergo a lot of Karma Phala, for which it has been sent here. That Karma Phala forces one to get up. Forces the Sukshma Sharira to come up and the Sthula Sharira to come up again. Go through the whole cycle all over. In each of these states, which is negatable in the other state, something is common, consciousness, Atma. That remains and that cannot be negated. Therefore, Tvam, Lord Ganapathi, Brahman in the form of Lord Ganapathi that I pray to, Tvam Avastathraya Atitaha. I recognize you as being, for want of a better word, beyond the three states. I recognize Brahman, Ishvara and Brahman, and hopefully with your grace, one day I will understand that Brahman and I are the same. Related to this, the fact that we talk about that in these three states of Jagrat, Swapna and Nidra are the three Sharira. When we read Sattva Bodha, we saw what are these three Sharira. The Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. The first thing we have to understand in this, when we say Sharira, our immediate mind jumps to a form with two arms, two legs, and a head and a body. That is not what is meant by Sharira here. Because when you go to Sthula Sharira, I can still somehow imagine the physical body with two hands, two legs, etc. But what will you do when you talk about Sukshma Sharira? We saw that Sukshma Sharira has 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Prana, and the 4 or 2, whichever you classify it, Antakaranani. Manas, Buddhi, Ankara and Chitta. Chitta here meaning memory. That constitutes the Sukshma Sharira. All this arises from the Panchabhuta. The Sthula Sharira arises from the Panchabhuta, the Sukshma Sharira also arises from the Panchabhuta. And this apparent Sharira, Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, the hetu for them, the cause for them is the Karana Sharira. Now, when I tell you that Karana Sharira means ignorance, Ajnanam, then you will understand why you cannot call this, why you can't imagine this as a Sharira. That is the cause of our identifying with this Sthula Sukshma Sharira. I, the individuality, has got connected to the Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira. And that is caused because of not knowing. And that not knowing, that ignorance is called Karana Sharira. And because of this, there is an alienation with Ishvara. What Shastra is trying to tell us is you and Ishvara are the same. But because of this Ajnanam, one tends to identify with the Sthula Sukshma Sharira and therefore different from Ishvara. All our life, our endeavor is to find that connect with Ishvara. But because this ignorance is so strong, the Abhimana with Deha is so strong, the Sthula Sukshma Sharira becomes I. And therefore, our effort, because I have defined I as a Sthula Sukshma Sharira, Karna Kara Sanghata, karya karana sanghata, I cannot see how I am the same as Ishvara. Because of this identification with these, all the limitations of the sthula sukshma sharira, which will have limitations, it is designed like that, become my limitations. And because I have these limitations, I cannot for the life of me imagine how I can be the Sarva Shaktiman, Sarvajna Ishvara. Forget about being the Purna Brahman. So the entire study is to try and find how to get there, how to look at I and find out where the error in my concept of I is. Where is the Rajnanam that is there? And how can I, to get rid of Rajnanam, Ajnana Nivritti, that is all there is in this knowledge. There is no new knowledge. Jnanam is there. All we are trying to do is to find out how to get rid of the Rajnanam. When Rajnanam goes, its brood of all the kama, karma, etc. also goes. So they all arise from Ajnanam. So the effort is to try and get rid of this ignorance. And knowledge stands out. That knowledge, aparoksha jnanam, once you remove the ignorance, what stands out is I am infinite. I am that infinite that is there, that I have tried to understand with this buddhi by doing shravanam, mananam, and nididhyasanam. Limitations are imposed by three things: time, space, and vastu. If I am here at this time, that's impossible then to imagine I am also in the same form, same way at another time. Time T1 and time T2 are two different I's. The I that I imagine I am. So if I am in 2021, I may not have been there in 2005 or 1900. I may not be there in 2056 because the I imagine, I have already put limitation of time. Second limitation I put on that is space. If I'm in place P1, I'm not in place P2. I'm sitting in Coimbatore. Automatically, it means that I'm not in New York. I'm not in Chennai. I'm not in any other place. Immediate limitation. So I occupy this particular space. Two objects cannot occupy the same space. This space at this time is I. I am not occupying another space. And the third, I am this object, this sharira, sthula shukshma sharira. I identify myself with the extremities of my sharira. Anything beyond that is not I. Therefore, that cat running around is not I. The shirt I'm wearing is not I. And then there's a question mark about saying, is this hair I? I don't know. But I have already limited myself. Desha kalu vastu avachinnam. What these mantras are trying to tell us is that if you understand what these words mean, then the student of the Upanishad is saying, hey Brahma, whom I see in the form of Lord Ganesha, you cannot be limited by anything. You are Desha Kala Anavachinna. Desha Kala Vastu Anavachinna. I am limited because I impose limitations of all the three on me, on my idea of me. I recognize that Brahman is Purnatvam, no limitation. Given this, it becomes very difficult for an individual to understand how I and Brahman can be the same. There is only one possibility. I have defined the I wrongly. I have to relook at my definition of why. Once I'm able to do that, then there is a possibility of recognizing that I and Brahman are the same. That body, the mind, etc., the senses, etc., which I knew to be different from Brahman, continue to be so only in one form. None of them is different from Brahman because they are non-independently existing. But Brahman is none of them. I am none of them. So in the next mantra he says, Tvam kalatraya atitaha. Trikala atitaha. Very interesting expression. These are dealt with in great detail in Mandukya Upanishad. The very first mantra says, I will read it, talks about Om. I keep saying Om, Brahman, I, Atma, everything is the same. Says, Om ityetad aksharam idam sarvam. Tasya upakhyanam bhutam bhavyat bhavishyat iti sarvam omkarameva. Now we know time only in the form of three: past, present, and future. Bhuta, bhavit, and bhavishyat. Thus, all three are omkarameva. I can stretch past as far as I can go. I can stretch future as far as I can go. And now is the present. All are Omkara. That means all are Brahman, all are I. I am none of them. I keep repeating that. I am none of them. But interestingly, that mantra doesn't stop there. Now, our brain might stop. No, Trikala Atita hai, past, present, future. You can't think of any other time frame. Because that's all the time frame that we know. But the mantra goes on to say, Yat chanyat Trikala Atitam tadapi Omkara eva. Anything that transcends the three times periods, past, present, and future, that is also Omkar. That is also one. How do we understand this? When it says Trikala Atitaha, all the three kalas are I Brahman. Brahman is not any of them. It also goes on to say Atitaha, beyond the three kala. What can be there beyond the three kala? Our mind cannot conceive of that. But if you analyze it a little bit, time consists of past, present, and future in our thinking. Present is now. Past is yesterday's now. Future is tomorrow's now. Now let's look at what is now. I can start with saying today is now. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, when I was getting ready, now that is not now. That is gone. When I finish the class and go to do puja, that is not now anymore. What is now? Because now has to be an interval. You can keep breaking it. Hour, minute, second, microsecond, nanosecond, picosecond, whatever other second you can come up with. It is still subject to the same argument. If this picosecond is now, the last picosecond was now, the next picosecond will become now. And if you keep breaking it down, where is now? In mathematics, you will say tending to zero. In other words, now is really non-existent. How is it? If now itself is subject to these kind of questions, past, which is nothing but yesterday's now, also is subject to the same questions. Future, which is tomorrow's now, is also subject to the same questions. Now you have your Trikala, past, present, and future, all open to question. Does time exist? Or is it a creation of our own imagination? And when you compare it with what Shastra says, that the time scales are very different in different lokas. The time scale on the earth loka is different from the time scales on various other lokas. Therefore, if somebody goes to, after doing a lot of punya, goes to Svargaloka, he might take another form after 100 earth years. But did he spend 100 years in Svargaloka? Maybe not. Maybe he spent a few minutes of Svarga time. Even in our own experience, we know that the time that we have in the Jagrata Avastha is very different from the time we have in the Swapna Avastha. I might dream of what happened to me over a period of several days. So in the dream, I'm seeing days coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. But when I wake up, I know that I dreamt perhaps for 2 seconds of waking time. So 2 seconds of my waking time is equivalent to so many days of my dream time. But time is not absolute. We give it absoluteness, time and space, in order for us to transact in this world. And because we do that, we find it very difficult to think of time as not being absolute. Even Einstein, when he first discovered this, in his calculations, was stunned. It is reported that he said, I felt as if the earth had been pulled out from under my feet. So this Trikala Titaha has to be understood as saying not subject to limitation by time, just like the other ones. This Atitaha, that's why I said, for want of a better word, I use the word beyond. But what it really means is that these are limitations we have imposed. And that Brahman who I pray to in the form of Lord Ganesha is not subject to such limitations. And tomorrow when I understand that Brahman is I am not subject to any of these limitations. Time I take charge of. And that time we will take charge of till for one more week of Earth time and continue next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.